We want to welcome you and really appreciate you being here supporting this Common Ground event. The reason that this started is really to everybody's talking on their own corners about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the needle is moving very slowly, and we are hoping that by bringing all the different organizations together, we have here representing IIDA, we have NOMA, we have AIA, we have ASID, just bringing everybody together to talk about what else can we do, how can we do it a little bit faster, and coming together with that discussion. And I really want to introduce yourself, the person that planted the seed on my head and give me that challenge to put this together. She has won many awards. She is an amazing professionally and as a person. She's a fellow AIA. She has had the NOR Design Party, which actually brings Black architecture back into the scope and to the registry. She actually just had 5 historic architecture sites put into the National Registry. And she also has an amazing podcast. It's called Hidden in Plain Sight, SITE. So hopefully you guys can tune in and listen to it because it's wonderful. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to Sandra Little. She is a colleague, principal of Quinn Evans, a mentor, not just to me, but to many people in the industry. So here is Sandra Little to lead the panel.
Thank you so much. It's rare that you have somebody come to you and say, how can we have conversations like this and get more people in the room, and then says, then turn around and said, I'm going to organize it. I just need you to be there. So I am just here supporting her efforts of putting together this series, Common Ground, to have this discussion, to have these dialogues. And hats off to you, Fatima, for your hard work. And totally worth the wait. So I am your moderator for this evening. I really am super excited to be here. I am home, so I am a Lawrence Tech alumni, so I am very excited to be back on my stomping grounds and have this common ground conversation. So I'm not gonna introduce everybody. I'm gonna let each person on the panel introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about themselves, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Oh, I guess I start next to you. Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Cook. I'm the CEO of Develop Architecture. I'm also Lawrence Tech grad. I tell Sandra all the time, I'm trying to grow up and be like her. I'm past NOMA Detroit president. I'm 16 years in the profession now, licensed since 2016, bachelor's and master's at Lawrence Tech. And some of my projects of note around town, Detroit Pizza Bar, Diamond Design Beauty School, Memento Gelato. Those are some of the ones you can actually visit. So I always like promoting the clients that I have. First Black architect to have a 3D printed structure in the US. So that is in Detroit. It's being built right now. Yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Good afternoon, or I guess good evening. My name's Kendall Bowman. I am the current president of NOMA Detroit. I am the principal of Arcos Studio and a project architect at Lot 3 Metz Crutcher. A little bit about myself. I am not a Lawrence Tech alum. I'm sorry. I am a University of Michigan alum 2 times, undergrad and grad. I have a lot of experience. I will call myself a jack of all trades. Everything ranging from corporate interiors to airports to military facilities. Yeah, I'll leave it at that as far as projects. But I'm really excited to have this conversation and see where it goes.
Good evening. My name is Doreen Hunter. I am an interior designer, and I'm also past president of ASID. And once you hear my story and think about what I said, past president of ASID, I've been in the industry for over 30 years. I've probably worked for 2 companies, residential and commercial. Afterwards, I started my own success story. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Roland Day. I'm an architect with John Tagle Associates. I'm a senior project architect there in Royal Oak. I'm currently serving as the vice president for American Institute of Architects Detroit chapter, president-elect for next year. And I've also been in the business for a little while and seen a lot of things, but I've moved, did undergraduate at Georgia Tech in Atlanta and moved here and did my graduate work here at Lawrence, and called Detroit home ever since. So very happy to be here. I think tonight's going to be very fruitful, good conversation I'm looking forward to as well.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is Claudia Padilla. I'm an associate and senior interior designer at NOR here in the Detroit office downtown. I'm also former VP of Advocacy for the IDA Michigan chapter. Just finished my term in June. Spent 4 years there on the board of directors. I primarily work on commercial projects, mostly in the city of Detroit, which has been a great honor. I've been in the industry for about 14 years now, and really happy to be here. Looking forward to it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Walker. I am co-founder of Other Work. It's a boutique experimental firm based out of Southwest Detroit, and we really focus on spatial advocacy and working with mission-based organizations. I am also a Lawrence Tech alumni for both undergrad and grad school, and I volunteered with Brian Cook for four years or so on NOMA Detroit. So I am excited to be here. Thank you.
Such a wonderful panel. I had no idea there were so many Lawrence Tech people on the panel, but we'll take that as a bonus. So everybody knows that the numbers and stats within our profession, interiors, construction, architecture, with minorities, is low across the board, from Latino X to African American, women in the profession. So we wanted to make sure, too, we got a panel that kind of represents all those different backgrounds. When I came into the profession, I don't know how everybody else felt when they came into it, I had no idea the numbers were so low for African American women in the profession. I just was like, hey, I love to draw. This is a profession that I saw as dignified, that I could take to my mother and say, hey, I'm gonna be an architect, and I'm not a starving artist, and she wouldn't, come after me. But had no idea about the numbers within the profession. So one of the questions, we did give the panel a couple of preemptive questions. One of the questions is, how was it for you coming through the profession? How was your perspective when you kind of stepped into it? And then did you have a mentor or somebody you could go to kind of help you navigate that? And then we'll start at the reverse order this time. We'll go with Laura this time.
Awesome. So I think I would not have known that architecture was even a possibility, except that I had a friend whose dad was an architect, and he said, Laura, you need to be an architect. And he actually brought me here to show me what the studios were like. So it was because I had a white male friend with a white dad that was an architect, and I mean, yeah. And I did have a mentor, John Avdulos. Carla knows John. He really supported me, and I feel like I'm making an assumption here, but maybe I was kind of like a daughter-ish sort of figure. Like, he took me under his wing and just like gave me opportunities that I was really grateful for. And that was at HKS. Similarly, when I worked at Smith Group, I had another mentor there, also a white man, design architect. And again, I think I was sort of like a daughter figure, which that's important. Probably we'll get to why that's important later. But those were my mentors.
So to be honest with this question, I kind of struggled a little bit, because looking back at how I started in interior design and getting into the architecture design industry, I didn't have a mentor. So how did I get here? I think it's just because, a little bit about my background. Like so many others, it feels almost like a classic story. First generation college student, daughter of immigrants, trying to make it. I think really it was my parents pushed me a whole lot. They're like, you're going to school, you're going to school. So that was, there's no other option, you're going to school. And similar to Sandra, I love drawing. I wanted to be an artist forever. But I was also, good at math and things like that. And I'm like, oh, what would be a good job? So design seemed like a really good place where those things merged. And, I just kept going. Like, I went with design. So of course, over time, especially as a young designer, I've met so many people who have now become, mentors and peer mentors, which I'm so thankful for. This career has given me so much. But starting off, there was no one there. And I hope to hopefully be that person for someone moving forward. Like, now that I'm here, give back. If someone asks me a question, asks me to be a mentor, asks me to be a sponsor, I'm there.
It's amazing. You can't be what you can't see, right? But it's amazing that you're there for others. Roland?
Well, I'm going to start a little bit with my background. I'm an Army brat, so I've moved around. I had the opportunity to be very comfortable with change, new places, and new people. So early on, I wanted to be an architect. I'm almost 10 or 12 years old. I knew what I wanted to do. And so I just kind of pursued that. When I got to the undergraduate, and I'm level at Georgia Tech, and I'm among that freshman class of 60, and they say, 3/4 of you will be gone in such and such a time. Well, there were only 2 other folks that looked like me at that time. So I observed these things, but it wasn't so much a problem, but it was an awareness. But fast forward through school, which worked out really well, and ended up here working at Sims Varner Associates. Harold Varner was my mentor. His daughter, Kimberly, had transferred, and I met him while I was in Atlanta. She came from Tulane. And so I got to know him before I moved here. And he is one of the 2 principals, was one of the 2 principals in one of the longest running black architectural firms in the US. And he's been through so much, huge resume, also went to Lawrence Tech. He could do structural, mechanical, electrical calculations. He knew everything. He's amazing, was amazing, excuse me. And so he took me under his wing. He would sit down for an hour after work, shoulder to shoulder with me at the computer. We would just go through the work. He would explain things to me. He was patient with me, as much as Harold could be for those of us who know him. But that was incredibly invaluable. He took me to meetings. It's time to suit up, go to the big boy meetings and see how the CEOs interact and understand how that field was. So he cast a very good vision for me. I never felt worthy of it at the time because I didn't know, I didn't have that brass until he pressed it and kind of shook it out of you. But he was very good in terms of opening the door, explaining things, showing, and his expectations, though high, he helped you achieve them. So that was incredibly beneficial. And to your point, I hope to be that person for someone at some point, because it's just a whole different game.
Awesome story.
Where do I start? Probably at the beginning. But I want to say this. I met Roland then when he was that young architect. And I think Sims Varner sent Roland to me to take care of a project that did not happen. Okay, so who was my mentor? As I really thought about that question today, and it came to me, my mother was my mentor. My mother was very fashionable. She loved beautiful things, so she was always redecorating and changing. And I was exposed to a lot of country clubs. At that time, she was in management with Chrysler Corporation. So I saw a lot of things. When I went to school, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. Then I was going to be business. No, matrix math. I would still be in school doing that. So I went back. I said, you know what? I want to be an interior designer. What is that like? I had no idea that I could draw because I always thought that I couldn't. So when it came time to do those perspective drawings and so forth, I was right there, and that is how my story began as an interior designer. Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay. Mentors. Well, I guess I'll start with mentors within the design field. Did I have any? No. My mentors came from my house. They were my mom and my dad. Anything, I was actually telling Doreen, I was kind of the odd duck of the house. Like, I would walk around with no shoes on. If I had socks on, I might have one on, or like, if I had to, they were mismatched, and my parents would make fun of me. But they always let me be who I wanted to be or be who I was. So that's something that always stuck with me. My mom is a emergency room nurse. My dad is a judge. I am an architect. I'm a creative kid. I'm not necessarily the path that they went, but they were always, hey, if that's what you want to do, that's what you do. Now, did I know what I wanted to do when I got to college? Absolutely not. I don't think anybody who goes to college knows what they want to do. Well, I mean, all right, maybe a couple people, but a lot of us are still trying to figure it out. But what let me know that maybe architecture is what you want to do, it was sophomore year. I had a peer mentor when I went to the University of Michigan in undergrad. I had to go to summer school right after I graduated high school. So I had to go to Michigan for my summer right after graduating high school to get acclimated to the campus, to the lifestyle of being a college student, things of that nature. Oh no, I get to go to college early? Sweet. So I went to college. One of my peer advisors, she was getting ready to apply to the architecture school. So a part of that was putting together a portfolio. I had no idea what a portfolio was, but I got to see hers. All my life I had been drawing, playing with Connects and Legos, and the things that she was doing, I was like, I can do that. I've done that before. So time came for me to figure out what Kendall was gonna do with his life. Sophomore year, I took some prerequisite courses for architecture. So it was 201 and 202, basic drawing and graphic communication. Never forget it. It was in the modern language building in the basement. Both of those classes were 4 hours long. I took them back to back. So I was in the same room, in the same seat for 8 hours, and I loved it. And that's when I knew, like, if I can sit here for 8 hours, watch the sun track through the sky in the basement of a building, this might be something for you. But I didn't necessarily have a mentor that was within the field saying, hey, you should do this. I had my parents, hey, what did you do today? I drew for 8 hours. Did you like it? Yeah. Maybe you should look into that. What's this architecture thing about? And that's who gave me the direction that I needed to, kind of formulate my life.
For me, I've had, actually similar to Kendall, right? My parents, right? But that's upon reflection. They've always been supportive, but they came from retail, right? Like they both work retail jobs. My mom's still working, retail jobs. So they always encouraged me to go to school. Never, like you don't have to be. It was never specific. So it wasn't until I took a drafting class junior year in high school. I love to draw, just as everybody, and I love math. And I was like, oh, I took a drafting class, and like we were hand drawing still, and I was like, oh, you could put these two together. You can put art and math together and do something like huge. I'm an architect. That was it. I had made the decision. I had no idea what that meant, no idea what I was getting myself into, but it just felt right. Like, this is what I'm supposed to do. So of course I went to Southfield High, so I was up the street and I came here, mostly because they gave a laptop at the time, and that was really huge. People don't understand, getting a laptop, early 2000s was a big deal. So I had to learn everything. Like I knew absolutely no one in construction, absolutely no one in architecture. I knew nothing about architecture except stuff happens in a big scale. So everything I learned, in that point was only through Lawrence Tech. I tell my students, so we've been doing Project Pipeline the last 10 years, and I was part of the initiative, been pushing that initiative the last 10 years, and I tell them I did everything about college wrong except good grades and finish. I didn't network, I didn't get internships, I didn't have any mentors, so I had to figure it out. But I got blessed when I finally got my first job, and that was 9 months after I graduated with my bachelor's, that I ended up at a firm that was actually all black. Like it's actually a civil engineering firm, and they had an architect there, and his name was Millard Wright. Isn't Millard Wright? He's in Jamaica, but because he was Jamaican, and he was here, and he was trying to affect change in Detroit. So that was like his vision. So I got work directly under him. And he just encouraged me that I could do this. I had my realization moment when I'm sitting in there. I was like, I've never been in an office before. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And then he hands me a bunch of markups and red lines, and I was like, oh my God, I know what this means and what I should be doing. I was like, all right, I got this. I'm good. So then he encouraged me to continue on and actually get my license, go back from a master's. And then when he moved back, I had another mentor, Isaac Norris, in Grand Rapids. And again, there was more indirect, just encouraging, right? He helped me start Project Pipeline in Grand Rapids, and that's been 10 years. So mentoring is a huge part of, for me, because I didn't have it, I'm making sure people do that I interact with, because I don't even know where I would be if I actually had it that early, right? So if I can encourage anyone, and I've already seen the fruits of some of the mentoring that I've already done come to bear, so it's important for me to continue that moving forward.
Very good stories, and I relate to what everybody said. It's like we fell in love with the profession, right? Our passion is what drives a lot of people in architecture and interiors to stay. We love the work that we do. But then the reality hits, right? So then the next round of questions. What were some of the obstacles that you have went through in the profession that is related to gender, race, diversity, right? And was there somebody there to kind of connect back to that mentor question that helped you through that? So I would just start with that. You want to go back in this order? You want me to start? I'll start from the middle. Doreen. You got to mix it up. Y'all get to it in a pattern there.
Do a curveball.
So, to really answer that, the obstacles, when I got out of school, I thought the world was open to me. Little did I know. I was wearing cornrows in my hair, and I spent a lot of money to get it like that, right? So I said, well, I have this interview. I better undo, didn't get the job. That went on for 10 years, okay? Somewhere in between that time, I had set myself up as a sole proprietor. I started networking. I went places. I knew people in political arenas. I signed every document that I should have as a minority owner for business. But it still didn't happen. So I continued and continued. So 10 years later, I get a call from a retail store. Go in for the interview. I thought it was for interior designer. No, it's to work on the floor. I didn't know anything about sales. So at that time, that was when you were drafting and drawing by hand, okay? So soon afterwards, the young girl quit because I was there. I'd been in school 4 years, and she had been there too, so there was some type of threat. I don't know why. So the very day that she walked off, I'm thinking, I'm gonna get the job. My supervisor wanted to know if I could help her draw this plan out. She was not a designer. She was a supervisor, right? My feelings were crushed because they brought someone else from a store that did not look like me. So within, I think, 5 months, I left that retail. In the meanwhile, I was still doing my own business. Somewhere I got a call from a State Farm, come do their office. I had to find, where do you get commercial furniture from? Because I didn't know. So I found a place in Fraser, Michigan. They liked me so much, just being there, they offered me a job out of nowhere. I'm like, Fraser, Michigan? So, okay, I was really doing my own thing, right? On Tuesdays, I bowled with senior citizens. Yes, I did have a 3-year-old. So when they offered me the job, I said, well, I can't work here on Tuesdays. They said, whatever, that's good. So in the meanwhile, I had in the back of my head that I was gonna open up a retail place. And I shared that with them. And I did do that. And they helped me not get the place, but they helped me with furniture, office furniture. So in that time that I was there, I learned every line that was to learn. I did unusual things that they were not accustomed to, like offering tea and coffee at that time to the customers, and they loved it. And I got accolades back from the customers, right? So when I moved my business downtown, they were there with me to support, bought furniture down that I could use to get sales from. I'm gonna stop here. I don't wanna cry.
Well, after working in a few offices for a while, I decided also to open up my own company. I had a small firm called Urban Works for a while. And at that time, in Detroit particularly, there were kind of the set-aside work projects. If you're going to do work for the city, they had certain percentages of work set aside for minorities. And so dealing with that process was always interesting, and it was challenging for me in that it felt like I don't want to do it this way. I felt like I do good work, I work hard, I try to work well with others and play well with others. Why can't we just do it this way? And it always felt like running through that gauntlet it felt unnecessary. But on the other side of that coin, there were a lot of people who would not necessarily have gotten some work to begin their resume without that. So it was always kind of a two-headed beast, but it was just something that it always felt like I didn't quite earn all of that. And that always bothered me as far as the playing field goes. So.
I think some of the challenges I faced were early on in my career. When I also came out of school thinking, this is going to be great. I'm a designer now. I'm a professional. And then the cold water hits you in the back. So I think, similarly, just the fact that you see and you don't understand why certain projects are going to certain people and not to you when that's your profession and it's going, a really great interiors project is going to an entry-level engineer. Why is that? And things like that happening, and you start to question what's going on. Like, I'm the interior designer. So, over time, once I was working, I did have a really good mentor who kind of, taught me the ropes and, you know, how things are, how to best communicate with people to, I guess, just to help make things more fair. Even though there was only a certain amount I can control, you know, via my communication. Another obstacle I remember, this same mentor, once she became my boss down the road years later, let me know that I was being grossly underpaid compared to all my counterparts. And I'm like, why? We have the same work, same, you know, experience, education level, like what's going on? So that, you know, that was kind of a red flag as well. So those are the kinds of things that, you know, I became aware of as a very young designer that, you know, I had to now look out for, you know, in future jobs, opportunities, you know, experiences, like, okay, this is what's going on, this is our industry, and this is, you know, you can't control other people, but you can control yourself and how you react to it. And I just think the more informed you are, and also aligning yourself with those good people who are trying to help you, you know, listening to them, you learn to kind of see those obstacles and try to get past them.
I think the biggest challenge I faced was being a mom and also the sole primary financial care or provider for my family. I had my first child as a senior in undergrad. My second one, she was 11 weeks premature, and I was going to grad school here. And then my third one, when I was studying for the exams, I remember taking the structural exam, and I was so nauseous, and I had to pee like every 45 minutes. But like, we were on welfare, we were on Medicaid, and I was making poverty level wages. So like, for me, the biggest challenge is like you mentioned, the wage gap, and it's not just for women. It's, you know, men were also underpaid at that time too. And that's just really important to me, is like having transparency around salaries and sharing what your salary is, because that's like the only power you have as a worker. So yeah, that money is probably the biggest challenge.
For me, my biggest challenge was the lack of knowledge around kind of everything that was already said, right? I walked in, didn't know anything, got through school, knew that there's a whole lot I still didn't know. Didn't know the numbers or how bad it was, because because I was like, oh, I'm going to be an architect. Like, I remember being here, being in the auditorium, and like similar like what you said, Roland, they were like, it was like 200 students, and this is the only thing I remember. Like, look to your left, look to your right. Only one of you are gonna make it through this process. And I was like, oh wow, y'all ain't gonna make it. I mean, I distinctly remember that, because this was going to happen. I don't know how, but I just knew that this was my path, right? So just figuring it out has been the most difficult part, and realizing how much of a hurdle that ends up being, and then just seeing, oh, okay, so it must be really nice to have a client that just, sends you money to do random stuff for lots of money. Like, where do you find those clients? Like, how do you find those clients? So, things like that. But yeah, that was just a lack of knowledge, and so I didn't perceive it as a slight, because I didn't know enough to say that this is what I should have been getting. So.
I had a lot of obstacles. Let's just put it out there. I had a lot of obstacles. Getting into school, just to start, that was hard. Getting into grad school, even harder. But when I graduated and finally came out into the working world, it was in the midst of the housing crisis. So architecture jobs were almost non-existent. Thankfully, once again, thanks to my parents and my dad, he's been teaching me networking since I could probably walk. Going to his campaigns, him campaigning to be judge, me having to talk to people and hand out literature. Hey, vote for my dad. Why should I vote for your dad? Ooh, let me tell you why. Come here. But having that experience throughout my life, and knowing that it's not necessarily what you know all the time, it's who you know or who can help you. That's how I got my first job. It was networking, and it wasn't even networking with architects, designers, anybody. It was lawyers and judges and board members for a hospital. Had nothing to do, and you're wondering, why am I in this place with these people, talking to them, shaking hands, kissing babies? Why am I here? I want to be an architect. Why am I in a hospital? That's why, because hospitals are always building. And if you know somebody that's in the right position, they can put you in a position for you to get a job. Whoever they hire to do their design, hey, I got this kid who's a designer, who's trying to be an architect. You're gonna get the project, but you gotta bring him too. Whatever it is that we have to do to make that happen, you need to make that happen. So getting that first job was me realizing that it might not be somebody in this room that's gonna help me out totally. It could be a lawyer, it could be a doctor, it could be some contractor, it could be anybody. So don't limit yourself to just the people that you know. You gotta go to organizations that you've never even heard of and just sit in the room. Just be there. You might not have anything to say, but just be there. But to jump back to what Brian was saying, after I got into the room, there was a lot of obstacles of, when you're, well, maybe you don't know, but when you're in an office, people give you work. I'm not getting the same amount, the same quality, the same type of work that everybody else is getting. Maybe it's because, I got brought here by the hospital execs that want me, so they're not actually gonna give me work. That's another obstacle. You gotta prove yourself in those situations. Again, there's an obstacle of, okay, I'm not getting the work that I probably should get. How am I gonna make this be a experience that is beneficial for me? So you gotta find some way to make it beneficial for you. What I did was, I got all these hours that I gotta get in order for me to get licensed. We're about to get as many hours as we can. So let's go through the list, let's go through the line, and let's figure out how we can get onto some committee, somebody help me get all of these hours. And if you pester them enough, they will help you. Well, I won't call it help, but they'll do it so you'll stop bothering them. And it's an obstacle, but some way, somehow, you gotta get over it. And those were some of my beginning obstacles. I won't share the rest for right now. I'll leave those for later. But yeah, I think the beginning obstacles are always the hardest. It's always, I've graduated, now what? What do I do? How? Me now being the person that I am, I'm supposed to show you how, and that's what I'm doing on a daily basis.
I got a little bit from each one of you. Like, I just think back in my head as Lauren was talking, and I had my daughter when I was my master's program here at Lawrence. You know, I'm like back in class 2 weeks after I had my daughter. Right, I was like, I gotta make it, man. I can't fail this class. And you know, I get what Roland was saying. Like my first architectural start in the firm world was with all minority firms, right? I worked for a one-man firm, James Scott and Associates. When I first started out, it was like 3 of us in the studio, and that was it. Worked for Emmett Haygood. I was like getting a little bit bigger every time I moved up, right? I was like, it's 10 people in that firm, you know. And then I worked for Ghaffari and Associates, and I was like, whoa, 200 people, okay. But yeah, just navigating yourself through the world, and you know, not coming out networking, but learning how to network. You know, not meeting. I had never met a design professional when I'm deciding, like I said, forcefully, like Ryan, in my mind that this is what I'm going to do. But then now, how do I do it? Right. That is something that when you come from a diverse background, you're coming in from different parallel worlds almost. Like it's a lot of us, you can go through all the way almost to high school and never ever actually mix races until you get like maybe high school, definitely in college. But our society is so divided up. It's rare that you have a mixed race school growing up. And we're coming from parallel universes, and we're learning about these new worlds. And that's kind of how it's like coming into the design world, right? We're all coming from different vantage points. And we came into a profession that is known. You know, when I first heard, I was in college and looking at PA magazine, and predominantly white male profession. I'm like, oh, didn't know that. Okay. So, but now it's being talked about, right? Now it's being discussed. How do we open up the world? So our next round robin of questions is, how do we help navigate this world? I know some of us talked about through mentorship and helping others, but how do we break down some of these barriers? How do we break down some of the obstacles to make way for a broader conversation, a broader network of designers and architects at the table while they're designing for communities, right? So how do we do that? And I'm not even gonna pick a person. I'm gonna let a person pick themselves to whoever wants to go first to answer that.
I'll go first. Because I saw that question, and I've been thinking about it really hard about how do I make this profession be a little bit more diverse than not even a little bit. How do I make it be more diverse than what it is right now? And the thing that I came to the conclusion of is, if you're trying to start that at college, you're too late. Like, there needs to be a concerted effort, I don't know, grade school, middle school, somewhere prior to college, to get kids interested in or even know what architecture is. I think a couple panel members have had the pleasure of knowing architects or designers prior to college. But me personally, I didn't know any. I had no idea what an architect was until probably Nas saying you can be an architect, and I know I can. But programs like Arc Prep, ACE Mentor, Project Pipeline, all of those things, they need to come together in a form or fashion where it's just all year round to make sure these kids know what architects do, know what interior designers do, know what industrial designers do. And I'm not even trying to keep it just in architecture, but some way, somehow, getting a hold of kids at an earlier stage so that there's the opportunity that they know what to do when they get to college. Because sometimes by college is too late because they've got too many stressors already. You might have a kid, you might have a job, you might have all of these other extraneous worldly stressors that are on you that you got to take care of. So my thought is you got to get to them earlier than what we are.
Okay, I think I'm going to answer that. We're sitting here, and the title is what? Common Ground, right? We have 4 different organizations here. We pretty much do the same thing, different ways. Creativity, right? So the schools aren't going to do it. It's too much red tape to get through the schools. The parents don't know about architect, interior designers, industrial designers, any of the creative things, all right? So what I would challenge this organization to bring these 4 professional organizations together. This could be the catalyst of starting something and taking it to those kids. Having a program, we all have assets that we could call some of these manufacturers, call some of our trade partners, and get it set up and make a difference. That's what I say.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly. It has to start early. The kids need to know what's available. They need to have ownership and understand I can do that. They need to have hope that that is something that they can achieve. It's achievable. And then they need to have support. But to your point, the earlier they are exposed to that and understand what the workings are for that, the better. So, you know, the pipeline program, I think NOMA, the National Organization of Minority Architects, just the last couple of weeks, they've reached how many? Was it 20,000 kids over time? Nationally?
Yeah, nationally.
That's amazing.
Nationally,
I mean,
yes.
that type of exposure is where it needs to happen and how it needs to happen. And the ACE mentorship, we have a common friend who's just dedicated, Ken, a lot of effort to making a very conscious decision. I'm going to spend time with a person, and I'm going to give them my experience in working through that. And, you know, my mom says, you know, you can't stop time, but you can make time. And if you, that's an act. That's something you have to decide to do. You know, find someone that you can share with. We all have experiences and knowledge. We know other people now. We have networked. So we have a ton of resources that we can bring to the table. And I think that from the AIA's point of view, there was a report issued, the Hastings report, several years ago. It's a long report, but if you go to the website and find it, it has some very harsh information in it about the profession. People very candidly answered questions about how they felt, pay, atmosphere, culture in the offices, and it's something that our chapters decided to we're going to dust it off and bring it to the fore and make sure that from the professional side, if we can make sure that people understand and have exposure to this information, then perhaps they will listen and react to it as far as leadership in firms and at the professional level. So that's one of the tasks that we're going to be kind of initiating within the next year or so. So from the professional side, that's what we're going to try to do as well. Here we go.
So I agree with all of that. I think starting, you know, young, talking to kids, and of course, every opportunity I get, I have 2 kids. But that's a little circle, right? Like your own family is a pretty small circle, but that's where you can start, you know, and see that change there. Since I am part of IDA, I wanted to bring up nationally, IDA does have a pilot program right now, and it's very intentional. They're focusing it around teaching kids more about the interior design profession. Right now it's in Florida, so they're kind of testing it out there, but they are working with kids, and it's a really cool program where they introduce kids in underprivileged communities, about interior design, about the change you can make in your own community. And that's something we're, as IDA, really excited about, learning more about that and seeing how it expands. So just hopefully in the future, we'll see, hopefully a version of that program in Detroit. But right now, just on a smaller scale right now, I know they're not little kids, but as part of IDA, I was visiting a lot of different campus centers, talking to people, maybe not everyone looks like me, and that's the whole point, right? And everyone has a different voice, so just getting out there, talking to people, why it's important, why you should advocate for your profession. Yeah.
And I'll jump in on that. So definitely starting with the youth is a big part. And I'll actually give an actual example of us trying to, or the industry trying to get in. So Michigan Architectural Foundation, in 2008, they actually had an entire program built out to implement into schools, integrated at the elementary level. It's a 500-page document that it didn't get implemented because of the red tape. It never got implemented because they couldn't get it in. They couldn't add it to the school's programming, right? The teachers are already it's not the teacher's fault, right? They have to check these boxes for these kids and move it forward, right? So there's actual thing. You can go, you can check it out. In fact, we've used lessons from that. We've created videos from that because the principles of design, the principles that they're teaching the elementary student actually still applies to a high school student has seen none of that, right? So looking at a building and basically picking out of the shapes of the building, right? It's an elementary school activity, but has anyone in high school been asked to do that? It is a very simple thing, but so there's a lot that can be done, right? But I think it has to be outside of that. It has to be adjacent to it. It has to be not run by the school, so to speak, unless we can make that influence. But then that would take large firms to make a even bigger investment than what they should be doing now, right? You have these large firms that finding a common ground. Are they even meeting the numbers of what we have right now? Are they even exceeding the numbers of minorities that the stats are saying that's across the country? I think that'd be a great way to start talking at the bottom and then talking at the top. And then, talking about, right, having them make an investment that may not, quote unquote, pay off. If you invest in this program now in Detroit, yes, those kids might not come back to that firm that's there, but they may end up in the profession. And I think that's a thing, open up a lot of people's minds to think about, they didn't come here. I made an investment, they should come here. I was what incentive did you give them to come here? Is the culture changed? Do they want to come here? Are you doing meaningful work? Because if they're coming through what we're doing, they're going to want to do that. So I think there's a top and then there's a bottom to this discussion.
That was a true story, by the way. I was there with Brian and I witnessed it. And yeah, I guess that kind of leans into what I wanted to add. As a white woman, we play a really important role in corporate firms. We have a lot more power than I think we realize. And just accepting the fact that we have to take ownership and responsibility for the role that we have as white women and to speak up and call out injustice, call out racism, bring folks to the client meetings when other folks wouldn't, it was so hard to, as a young person, to be at the table with the client and see how decisions are made and the conversations that are had. You had to, be a part of the cool club and put in your work until you were invited to go. And so as I started to gain more leadership, I was always bringing in they call them A1s, like the newbies in the firm. That's part of, like, yeah, you hire 1 or 2 black people, 3 black people, and see how long they stay. And then you start noticing that they quit, and then why would more black people join? So promoting that, like, the culture, as a white woman, there's a lot that we can do to support that. Do you need more water?
I'm trying, it's probably a reason I'm coughing too, because I'm trying not to become a part of this panel. Y'all over here triggering me. I'm supposed to ask the questions. But
You can join in.
you can join in. It's low key, huh? I mean, I wear so many hats. So as Midwest Vice President for the National Organization of Minority Architects, we talk about this all the time. You know, actually, Project Pipeline from NOMA's standpoint is just one part of the pipeline, right? It should be, how do we start? How do we start with school-age children? You know, even if it's career days, speaking events at those schools, and continue along the pipeline. You know, it's after they go through, after you have the visit, you know, then they go to a camp. You know, then they you know, learn more and dig in a little bit. But then the fact is, once they go to the camp and they like, oh yeah, that's cool, I think I want to be an architect, interiors, whatever. College costs a lot. How do we get money and scholarships for these kids to who are sometimes coming from disadvantaged backgrounds into college, right? That's a whole nother obstacle. And then once they get out, life hits, like life be lifing, as we say in the streets, right? They come out and they hit obstacles like, I can't afford to pay for the exams, right? I didn't get hired by that firm. It took me a while before, like Doreen was saying, it took me a while to get that position, so I gave up. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen after that. So how do we get firms to grab hold of that and, like I said, hire from a diversity standpoint? So then my other hat, I put that one on, Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at Quinn Evans, right? You know, one of the main reasons, it blows my mind about Quinn Evans. Many of the main reasons I came to Quinn Evans is when I had my own firm for a number of years and worked with Quinn Evans on projects, right? It was a white woman, an ally, Liz Nibby, who basically was like, hey, I'm going after this project. I already know you networked out there. Let's go after it together. I was like, okay, cool, right? And then we're winning projects together, right? And then they approached me and my business partner, and that was another thing. My business partner I met in college here at Lawrence Tech. There wasn't a lot of us, so we stuck together. All of us who graduated together from Lawrence Tech, we still see each other. And coming to Quinn Evans, I was like, okay, let's talk to him. You know, we have a great relationship with them. But coming there, finding out that there's 54% women at the firm already, and I'm like, that's rare. You know, when the profession is really low, I'm like, yeah, like 23, right? So it's like, how did y'all get 54% women at this company? And then, or our next step is to become a woman-owned business. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I was like, that's very good. I'm with that. I'm down with that, because they had already started to break some barriers. And it's not a lot of firms that are doing that, right? Just trying to break barriers and then try to think what's next. You know, 2020 was a pivotal moment, right? Everybody was like, diversity, this is it, right? This is like, we had to talk about it. And then it's like, now they're like, Director of Diversity and Inclusion, you hear about people losing their jobs, you know, it's not that important anymore. It's like, we haven't moved the needle in any of these categories that we've been talking about all night. So we're not done, right? And I love the conversation that's happening here about how can, as organizations, how can we, you know, continue the conversation and connect together to make it a broader network. And that's the purpose of this panel discussion, Common Grounds. How do we keep expanding this? Even people in the audience, please come talk to all of these individuals before we leave tonight. But if you know, one of the goals, like Fatima gave me marching orders, right? So one of the goals of this panel is, right, this is session 1 of 3. Okay, so there are another sessions coming up, one on education and dealing with all the schools that are in Michigan, and then the last one is on industry professionals, right? Manufacturers in our space who we get products from, all of that, right? So if from each of these panels we come away with action items that then we maybe could connect the 3 sessions, right? We're really building a forefront and building the ground that across channels that, and we've been in silos, right? Like we talked about with the parallel universes that we all come from, we do that in our professions. So if we can break that barrier, you know, coming out of this panel and then connect the 3 sessions, I think we can really make some momentum here in Michigan, right? So our takeaway assignment is supposed to be, what action items can we leave with that each of us say we're gonna do, and then maybe a year from now we can come back and say, hey, we made movement on that, or hey, that sucked, it didn't work, you know, whatever it is. But, you know, with this panel, what do you think we could do with, and I have to say, we're looking at history here. I mean, when I came out of school, I've only seen a couple of African-American presidents of you know, Michigan organizations, professional organizations. This is historic, right? That we have so many, and then we have so much diversity on boards of these professional organizations. So we are making movement. So how do we continue that, and what can we have a takeaway from each of you?
Okay, the takeaway for us, I'm gonna partially speak on. You know, I'm gonna speak on myself first.
Go.
So for me, it's pushing the idea of mentoring, pushing the idea of, you know, helping people through the process at my own firm. Right, that's inherently what I'm trying to do, making it a part of what I do. So me as my firm, right? That's what I'm trying to do. And I'm going to speak on Project Pipeline a little bit, because next year is our 10-year anniversary of our first camp.
Go for it.
So for us, I'd love to, you know, actually double the number next year. Like if we can have that many students, maybe another camp in another city, large dollar amounts, and maybe, you know, we be the catalyst to starting that program, that youth program all year round. But that literally takes a bunch of other people that we don't have access to, because we've been bootstrapping it 10 years and we've, you know, gotten over 200 kids through our camp, right? And that was bootstrapping, figuring out a little bit of support here, a little bit of support there, and ground efforts. But to make it the thing that we're thinking about, and that National NOMA is thinking about, is going to take a lot of different people with a lot of different energy to make that happen.
Okay. I'm going to just start off personally. Personally, Brian's already touched on mentoring, but that's very large for me. I have a couple mentees right now that I help as much as I can on a daily basis. Sometimes we go a couple months without talking, and then we reconnect. But mentorship on a personal level, on a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 level, that's something that's very important to me. Action item professionally, Brian's already kind of talked about our 10-year anniversary of Project Pipeline here in Detroit. Yeah, we're looking to infuse it with a lot more than what we've had in previous years. That takes sponsorship, donation, money, but it also, and more importantly, it takes volunteers. And I'm looking at the crowd because this is something that you can do to give back or to help out or influence somebody who is younger than you, who is interested in the profession. I'm not saying it might be, it is going to be a larger event than we've had in the past 9 years. We are working diligently to make it so. I would love to have everybody on this panel either volunteer, come in and talk to the kids, or we'll figure out some way, something that we can all do together to make this what it should be for a 10-year.
And bring the checkbook.
I said sponsorships.
I'm just
I said
checkbook. No, just checkbook. I'm gonna emphasize it though. Like
I
we have
said
to
you gotta be
I wanted to
subtle.
emphasize.
You
I didn't want to be
got
subtle. Like we want to.
Hey, baby,
Use the money.
you had your time. It's my time now. I said sponsorships, volunteering. We appreciate the donations that jingle, but we prefer the ones that fold. But yeah, I encourage and I challenge all of us to be there next year because the kids deserve it, and our future deserves it. Done.
Okay, well said. And I like that. And I think I have spoken to both of you guys that the Michigan chapter, ASID, and Kelly B. Mansion will be the president come October the 1st. That we definitely want to network, sponsorship. So if 10 years is next year, you know we need to be planning now.
Oh, I am.
Okay. So
on it.
then we need to, whatever that is, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, just working it out, showing us what the plan looked like, where we could fit in. I think you would definitely have the commitment. Okay?
Will do.
And so I think from this group, and everyone will chime in, this will be the catalyst of the organization. We can work together. Drop your egos at the door, and let's get the work done, because it's not for us anymore, it's for the kids that's coming behind us, honestly. You know, so I'm gonna say this, if you look at all this work around here, some of it looks so similar, right? We wanna see more creativity in it. So we have to bring the future to the forefront.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do think that we, as the creative professional organizations, can certainly benefit from each other's experience. Our volunteers, we have membership that we can help each other. I'm sure people would be interested in helping in some of our ally partners and within industry for sure. And I would encourage you, even if you're students, you have knowledge that if you look into a 7th grader's eyes that's excited about it, and you can share why you are in school, you can do that now. You don't have to be highly technical, you don't have to be more mature, but you can share that energy and light the fire now. Get them started, and that's a light lift. Go do a career day. You know, it's not a big time thing. Go do a light lift. You'll benefit from it as well once you get them excited and see how the energy is. And, you know, I think, Brian, to your point about the longevity and the struggle of this, you know, we should be able to get our shoulders together and kind of throw our weight into it and drive that momentum up. And I think nationally, AIA National, I know, is also pursuing this because, again, to your point, how in 2020 everything was, you know, DEI and JEDA and just fired up, and now it's tapered off. And we need to keep that momentum, keeping that also lofted, because it's not going to go away. However, it is a more visible, top-down organization, but we do have to have that conversation from the top and the bottom. We just have to be persistent. and also understanding that you might put the energy into it now and you might not see the fruit that's born from it. But do your part to get it started, and be excited with that as well.
Yeah. So for my part, I think, just continuing to reach out to, talking to students and young professionals, which is something I try to do consistently. On the interior design side, I'm also listed as an NCIDQ ambassador, which is our exam for certification. So, often we get students who don't have the opportunity to work under someone, at a firm or under some, it could be like on a few occasions I've had, young professionals who don't know anyone, but they've maybe worked on something, kind of related, or maybe they're even from, another country and they're trying to come to this country and they need a sponsor. So just continuing to do that, give back in that way. I do agree with Doreen, though. If we want to make big change, I think we all have to collaborate, because there's only so much, we can do as individuals, which is still great. When you put it all together, all the drops of water, you'll have a good amount. But I would be happy to volunteer as well, and collaborate with everyone and the other allied organizations as well.
Okay, Kendall. Okay, Brian. So I'm already a NOMA member, but I co-own a studio. There are 4 of us. We'll have a summer intern. And I feel, to put your money where your mouth is and have billable hours or payable hours for us all to volunteer. How cool would it be if the bigger firms did that? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think you sparked the idea that we should make that commitment. So.
Sweet.
It's like amazing, right? It's the connections I'm seeing here. It's like on stage networking, right? As you see it right before you. So we're getting close to our time. I'm gonna close us out with one last question, one round robin, maybe a little bit quick fire, because it's Thursday night football tonight and the Lions playing. I don't want to make nobody mad. You ain't drinking the Kool-Aid yet?
10 wins, then I'll get in.
Can't do it. Can't be hurt again.
I'm just a fan regardless. I know either way. So we set our goals, right? And I love the commitment between each of the organizations so far. This is a continued effort, right? Common Ground really takes off, right? And it builds an effort to help move the needle in diversity. So what would each of your future view be of architecture if it was more diverse? What does that look like?
That is an awesome question.
Kinda.
Yeah, but I'm saying, what would it look like? It would look different. We would feel different. We would embrace things differently, and we will feel connected. If I could look out my window and see something that resonates with me, with my soul. And that's why we all need a seat at the table, to have a different view, to have the diversity, equity, and to be included in the decisions. I don't need anyone coming to my neighborhood deciding for me. Let me have a seat at the table.
Nobody wants to follow Doreen now. Huh?
Nope.
I would honestly, I was looking around. I said, I would love to see it look like this room, without a whole lot of effort. That it got to this point, and this might be a controversial statement. I would like to see. And please understand the spirit in which I say this. I'd like to see NOMA sunset. I would like to be able to not have to have that effort made. That we are just at that place. I know that's down the road. I know it's lofty, but I think that would be kind of amazing. you know, and that at least as a goal, if we're looking that far down the road and maybe toward that level, I think that's a good thing.
Okay, just because you said that, I'm going to say this. If we get it to where we're, you know, the future, I actually think it's flipped. It's NOMA and AIA has sunsetted.
See you outside, man. No, you're right.
Or
you're right.
we just don't have professional organizations, period. And we just, when we need to design something, just do it. I mean, if it's gonna be, we don't need one, let's not even go that route. We don't need any of them. I would just like to be able to go into an office or my office and not have to wear a suit. That's
Mismatched socks.
Mismatched socks optional, like t-shirt, and still be respected as like a really good designer. That's because I got to put on this outfit all the time. I would rather just shorts and tennis shoes, Jordans.
You should come work at other work.
It's too late for me, Laura.
But my real answer, though, it would be that if we really get it out there, we really get it penetrating, everybody, not the design profession, people would feel what we do. To me, that would be the future that I'd love to see, is that people are understanding not only what we all do, they understand it, and they have a better appreciation of it, and can make sure that even if we're not in the room, they have a few tools to make that decision or think about it differently. That would be the future that I would like to see.
That's a valid point. Some people do not know what interior designers do or architects do or industrial designers do. Great point.
Yeah, it would be cool to. Oh, well, you already got one, like a 3D printed house. Oh, that's a Brian Cook right there, guys. That would be cool for everybody to be able to just point out different designers that they know.
I love that response, Brian. Have you all been to Sidewalk Festival? Or you know what Sidewalk Festival is? So it's not an architecture, well, it's spatial, it's sort of architectural, but it's more of like just art everywhere, like performance art just saturated everywhere. And it's put on, over the past few years, it's been put on by a Black woman. She was a dancer. And what I would love, like you said, Brian, is the more that we have more diversity and just more inclusive design processes, that like our built environment would feel like this really joyful, colorful, vibrant art sidewalk festival. That's what I would love.
So before we close out, beautiful audience, I'd like to thank all of you for coming, and you've been sitting here patiently, but is there any questions that anybody has in the audience that you want to throw at any of the panelists? All right. Do we have a mic? Am I throwing everybody off by doing this?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have different levels of membership. There is like licensed professional, allied professional, student. Our NOMA student chapters outnumber the professionals within the national organization, Minority Architects on a national level. Students are like by far the highest demographic we have. Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to try to figure out what my question is by just speaking it out loud. It occurs to me that when you enter the design profession, you're not just learning what it is to be a designer, you're being imparted a worldview that includes norms, expectations, kind of cultural ideas. And that's kind of given through the types of architects that you learn as part of the pantheon, what is upheld as capital A architecture and what's not included, the long nights, the architorture concept of trauma bonding, you know, being up all night in studio, and how some of those, there's a culture that's cultivated, I think, around work, stress, around pushing yourself as hard as possible, competition, very competitive, and how in order to get to a place of more racial diversity, more inclusivity, all of this that we're talking about, takes challenging and changing some of the culture and the norms that we're all steeped in, and bring with us into the profession. So it's not just about getting more minorities or black and brown people at the table, but what is it that the cultural values that we're imparting that would allow more people to partake and make that a more inclusive process. And I'm wondering if there's anybody that can speak to that. What is it about the culture of architecture that you would like to change?
All right, that's a good question. I like a lot of the things that you just touched upon. So there's the architorture thing, the trauma bonding. I think we all have experienced that, and I'm pretty sure we all hate it. And this is just my thoughts. There would have to be a very large cultural shift in America to allow for our profession to relax. One thing, I'm gonna circle around. I promise I'm gonna land this plane. When I went to Barcelona, it was my second year of grad school, and I experienced this wonderful thing called siesta, where everything just stops and you get to take a break in the middle of the day. I had no idea what this was. I did not understand it, because where I come from, you go, 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 until like the sun goes down, and then you're just exhausted. Kind of like architecture. I think here in America, there would need to be a very large cultural shift to allow for us to relax a little bit, because everything that we do is tied to a client that has an unrealistic goal, timeline, an expectation. Huh? Not and they ain't got enough money. Yeah. But that cultural shift, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not necessarily our fault. We are kind of a product of what this American capitalistic system has created. But we are not, or we should not always bend to it, because at some point we're gonna have to push back and say, that's enough. I'm not gonna make all of these kids burn out just so you can have your building a week earlier. It's something that I don't know that we'll be able to solve today, and I don't think that we'll be able to solve tomorrow either, but it is definitely something that we would need to address as a profession, not just us here. That's a profession of, hey, this is how much we're gonna work, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, a little add to that. I think you're right. We're not really trying to change, right? We're not. The ship is this sail. We're already on it, right? We're on the ship, then we're trying to turn. But I think at best, practically, for real, I think that thing we could actually do is remix it, right? We can slowly, change these things by standing firm on these things, on what you just said. Like this, I'm not doing 60 hours. I'm just not. Like, why? Like, why, right? Because we're not taught business. So because we're not taught business, the business of it takes over how we do and what we do. So because we don't know the business, we don't know the numbers. We don't know the numbers, then it doesn't make sense why we're doing this, because it's just the norm. It's just what's been expected. It's just this is how we've always done it.
So what you're saying is we need to take business classes in school so that we know how to operate with clients.
I was about to say preach over here. I'm like,
Hey.
I had to learn about business after school. I started my own firm. I'm like, I got to figure this out. How am I supposed to do this?
Payroll.
No, and you're right. It's an American thing. I think the non-American countries have a whole different mindset on work, the work week, life in general, family, generational experiences. And I'm blessed right now. We have a small firm, 40 hours, we're out. You know, if I have to do something, it's because I need to do something, and that's on me, but the expectation is not there. You have a chance to relax. We did the 4 9s and get off on a Friday afternoon. He's like, let's do it all year. It worked out really well. It's like, yes. I mean, it's a whole different thing, because when I had my own firm, it was just go, go, go. Turns out I'm working on Sunday. It's like, this is not right. This is not good. And I've heard there are a couple other firms who do the same kind of thing. Life is important. Everybody's family is important. So I think it can happen incrementally, and we just have to push back. We have to be better business people. We have to manage our clients' expectations. It's like, no, you can't have this next week. Here's when I can get it to you. You have to be able to say no, and we have to not be afraid to be that professional in the room. This is what we do. And come in with that piece. I've been there. It's like, we'll draw for food. It's like, I get it, but
As I say, I was going to say, it's some economic downturns. People get to doing things.
this is very true.
I'll give it to you next week.
Yeah, but to whose benefit? So there's a growth process there, and there is a point where we do have to push back, and we do have to change it.
And I'd like to say that pushback is here. COVID caused us to push back. The great American quit. People still are not going back. It's what you're going to do. People are vibing now to work 4 days, 40 hours. I do that. Put it down. I look at it Sunday for about 2 hours. Monday, I'm up. Monday through Thursday. That's it. You're going to burn out if you just keep trying to keep up, get ahead, whatever. Figure out your own pace. I mean, Italy, when they go on vacation, August, everything shuts down. Everything, So I think things are turning, and it needs to be good, because we need to rest. Life matters. Design matters. A lot of things matters, right? Yeah.
Sleep matters.
You want to say something?
Yeah, and I agree with everyone, but to your point, I think the good thing about all the students here, and you've probably heard, at least I've heard from both sides, professionals have talked a lot about quiet quitting. What are these young people doing? They don't want to work. I say, if quiet quitting means having a balanced life, keep at it. All the young people here, it's good. I think that is a good push. I don't believe it's, people are just sitting there not working like that. That's wrong. But trying to fight for, your time and your balance in life and all of that, that's great. And I think that's something that good that came out of, this whole pandemic thing.
All right, I would like to say thank you to all of our panelists. This has been a great conversation. Thank you for your time. I would like to say thank you to Lawrence Technological University for allowing us to use this space and the stage to have this conversation. And don't forget about the upcoming events of Common Ground sessions that are coming up. And Fatima, do you have anything you want to close us out with? Or?
No, I just want to thank everybody for being here, supporting the event, the panelists for your time to come over here for this important, conversation that needs to happen. Everybody coming together because together we can do more. I really believe that. So I'm looking forward to the following sessions. I just want to mention too that everything that has been raised for the event, for sponsorship, from the raffle ticket that we're going to pull it up in a second, everything goes to NOMA Detroit to keep helping with mentorship programs and scholarships. So I really thank everybody for being here and supporting Common Ground. So thank you, everyone.
And all the wonderful sponsors that are on that banner, just hats off to them. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
You going to handle the raffle?
The raffle, oh, okay.
And while Fatima pulls that ticket, I just wanted to also thank everybody. You helped send some students to the NOMA conference. So your donations quickly went into rotation and helping with get some students to the NOMA conference in Portland. So good on you.
All right. I don't have my glasses, sorry.
Okay, 3022016.
Hey!
All right. Charlotte is a winner. She's not coming forward with that one.
I'm sure it does. Yeah. Yes.
It checks out. All right, we have a winner for the raffle. What did they win?
It's a chair from Michael Young. It's a designer, industrial designer, and it was donated by John Jingle and Associates, and it's a really nice stackable chair worth $770.
Nice donation. Wow.
And the raffle stickers were $5 each. So if
I was so
you didn't
busy
get
in here
it, you missed
moderating. I
out.
didn't know about the raffle. That's great. That is great.
That's awesome.
That's what I know. Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody, and everyone have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.